Well, first of all, I want to present a picture of my son, Warrant Officer Michael A. Kight. And I'll talk about him in a few minutes, but I just want you to be familiar of him while I'm talking about him. On May 19, 1967, I became a Gold Star mother. I didn't volunteer. I didn't even know what it was. I had never heard that phrase before. It was a beautiful May Sunday morning. We were getting ready to go to church, and a young man in an Army uniform knocked on our door. And he delivered the news that no mother wants to ever hear. Warrant Officer Michael Kight had lost his life in Vietnam. As I said, I didn't know what a Gold Star mother was, but at my son's wake, a woman dressed in white came up to me and told me she was sorry, but she told me she was also a Gold Star mother, Vietnam Gold Star mom, and explained to me what a Gold Star mother was. And she told me she'd call me in a few weeks and invite me to a Gold Star mother meeting. So I'm going to start with the history of the Gold Star mothers as it was explained to me. During World War I, there would be flags like this in the window. Mine broke. Anyway, that blue star meant that somebody in that family was in the military. Sometimes there was more than one blue star, depending how many people in that family were in the service. If the person passed away while in the war, while in the military, that was replaced with the Gold Star. President Woodrow Wilson was the president at the time, and he had great sympathy for these mothers who were losing their sons in the war. At that time, there wasn't daughters, it was all sons. And he thought that these mothers should be honored in some way. So looking at the Gold Star, he decided he was going to give the mothers a Gold Star title, Gold Star Mother title, and he proclaimed that official title. Then in 1925, 25 mothers in the Washington, D.C. area got together and decided to have a Gold Star Mothers organization. And that's how the organization started. But you don't have to belong to the organization. Like I said, you're automatically a Gold Star mother the day your son or daughter passed away. By 1929, every state had a Gold Star Mother chapter. But like I said, I had never heard of them. And I did go to the meeting, and it was the best thing I ever did. There was mothers there from World War II, mothers from the Korean War, and a few Vietnam moms. And some of you remember the Vietnam War was not a popular war. Very few times when I went to talk about Michael, sometimes I would get a very uncalled for comment. So I got where I didn't want to talk about Michael. I was so proud of what he did while he was there, but I was afraid to say anything outside of the family. Well, while I was at this meeting, they didn't care what war, what happened. You were part of them. They understood what you were I was going through, and they helped me go through what they went through. And I'd look around them and I'd say, well, they made it so I could make it. And they really gave me courage. Plus, I had other children at home, too, what helped a lot. And this organization was like a support group. They would meet 4 times a year and go to lunch, and that was it. And I felt kind of bad because I felt like when you mentioned you were Gold Star Mother, nobody seemed to know what they were. And one day, the traveling Vietnam War came to Connecticut, and 5 of us Vietnam moms went there. And we went in our uniforms, and as we walked around looking at different panels, trying to find our sons' names, different people would come up to us and say, what organization? What's a Gold Star Mother? And we would explain it. A man came up and shook my hand, and he introduced it, who told me who he was. I don't remember, sorry. But he wanted to know what's a Gold Star mother, and I explained. So before the ceremony started, he was one of the speakers, and he got up and he said, before I start, I want to introduce 5 special ladies in the audience. They're Gold Star mothers. And he told us to step forward, and he explained what a Gold Star mother was. And everybody clapped. Of course, you're not supposed to clap when a Gold Star mother is introduced. If you think about it, you realize you shouldn't clap. But we knew they were clapping to thank us, so that was okay. And after the ceremony was over, we looked at each other and we said, we've got to get out. We've got to be among people. We've got to let people know what a Gold Star mother is. So we started going to, so there was always a there's always a wall coming to Connecticut, and we would go. If maybe I couldn't go to one in Coventry, there'd be one there from the Gold Star mothers, they would go. We covered all the traveling walls. Then we start going to veterans' funerals. We start going into hospitals. We took part in parades, and we even had a motorcycle fundraiser. And I didn't ride a motorcycle, but one of the Gold Star mothers did. But I sat on one and posed for it. So then we start joining organizations. We just wanted to get out there and let people know what a Gold Star mother was. I joined the Wilkin American Legion. I joined the Prospect VFW. In fact, there's a helicopter in memory of my son Michael and others that didn't come back there at the Prospect VFW. I joined the Waterbury Veterans Memorial Committee. They do wonderful things for veterans. A few years ago, they raised $70,000, and they have a Gold Star Mother monument in the City Hall in Waterbury. It's a beautiful monument. If you're in Waterbury, just go in the front doors, and the monument is right up there on the top stairs. Beautiful monument. The night that they had the unveiling, it was my honor to unveil it, and I had such a lump when I looked at that. I have some pamphlets after I'll show you, but she's a mother that's dressed in like a World War II dress. She's got her hand on the table with the picture of her son that's in the service, and she's holding a Western Union telegram. And with the other hand, she's wiping tears off of her eyes. It's actually beautiful. In fact, I had tears after I looked at her. There's a couple of that you could pass around, and maybe people would like to see it. But like I said, if you're in Waterbury, please stop in and see it. Now, if I could just talk a few minutes about Michael. I won't talk too much longer because I know everybody's hungry. But I do want you to be a little familiar with Michael.
We got a while.
Michael was the oldest of my 6 children. When he was in the senior year at Caner Tech, he signed up for the Army delayed program because he knew he'd be drafted. So he wanted to pick out something that when he came home, he would have a career. And he wanted to be a helicopter pilot. So he graduated June of '65, and he went to boot camp in December of '65. In '66, he married his high school sweetheart, and he also got his silver wings, which he was very proud of. In February of '67, he went overseas into Vietnam. Michael was in Vietnam 3 short months, but in that 3 months, he was credited with over 25 rescue missions. And he received several medals. One of his medals was the Air Medal with the V device. The V stands for Valor. He received that posthumously. And with that medal also came a citation, and it said that when Michael and his crew found out there were 7 men, airmen down in enemy territory, they volunteered to go in and rescue him. And the citation says, under severe weather conditions and heavy enemy fire, it was a success. Of course, I miss Michael. Everybody misses Michael. But one thing I'm very thankful for, Michael's body was returned to us. And sometimes when I think about the missing in action and POWs, it must be a terrible thing. not to know what happened to your loved ones. That's about covers it. I don't know if there's any questions, but I have a little story that has a happy ending. Well, maybe not. It'll depend on you. Almost 2 years ago, they had the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War over in Windsor Locks and the Air Museum. And a Marine from the Vietnam War took me and another Gold Star mother. And Sam, the Marines, brought me over to a Huey helicopter, and he said, this is the kind of helicopter Michael drove. Somebody going by heard that, and they turned around and they said, have you ever been in a helicopter? I said, no. They said, well, you come tomorrow and I'll give you a ride in the helicopter. Well, I don't even like to be on the third floor of a terrace, but I said, well, I'm going to do it. And I did. I got up in the helicopter. The only thing was, I thought they were going to close all the doors, but they didn't. They had the whole site open, and I could have put my foot out, and it would have been out of the helicopter. So I was a little nervous. And then I grabbed Michael's dog tags, and I said, Ma, Mimel's up here. Keep an eye on me. And I kind of relaxed. When I got off, my girlfriend says to me, get in front of the helicopter. I want to take a picture of you. Well, I got in front of the helicopter, and I said, oh, my God. She said, what happened? In front of the helicopter, there was a picture of an Indian warrior. And I said, Michael's last picture home was a picture of him standing by a helicopter with the same Indian warrior picture. And here's mine, and there's Michael. I'll pass that around too. But if you notice, it's the same exact picture as that there. So I don't know, coincidence or whatever you think, but I feel like Michael was with me on that helicopter ride. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the invitation.
Thank you, Mary. I'm going to just read a little bit, just to give you a little bit more information on the Gold Star Mother program.
Stay there for questions.
They,
Okay.
before we open it up to questions.
Somebody's, oh, okay, go
Okay,
ahead.
yeah.
He said-
They were granted a congressional charter which lists the objectives and purposes and commitment on a national basis. They are to, 1, keep alive and develop the spirit that promoted world services, 2, maintain the ties of fellowship born of that service and to assist and further all patriotic work, 3, to inculcate a sense of individual obligation to the community, state, and nation, also to assist veterans of World War I, World War II, the Korean conflict, Vietnam, and other strategic areas and their dependents in the presentation of claims to the Veterans Administration, and to aid in any way in their power the men and women who served and died or were wounded or incapacitated during hostilities, to perpetuate the memory of those whose lives were sacrificed in our wars, to maintain true allegiance to the United States of America, to inculcate lessons of patriotism and love of country in the communities in which we live, to inspire respect for the Stars and Stripes in the youth of America, to extend needful assistance to all Gold Star mothers and, when possible, to their descendants, to promote peace and goodwill for the United States and all other nations. The importance of Gold Star mothers is eloquently recited in Public Resolution 123 that designated Gold Star Mother's Day on the last Sunday in September. Whereas the service rendered the United States by the American mother is the greatest source of the country's strength and inspiration, and whereas we honor ourselves and the mothers of America when we revere and give emphasis to the home as the fountainhead of the state, and whereas the American mother is doing so much for the home and the morale and spiritual uplift of the people of the United States, and hence so much for good government and humanity, and whereas the American Gold Star mothers suffer the supreme sacrifice of motherhood and the loss of their sons and daughters in world wars, and whereas the said Public Resolution 12 provides that the President of the United States is hereby authorized and requested to issue a proclamation calling upon the government officials to display the United States flag on all government buildings, and the people of the United States to display the flag and to hold appropriate meetings in their homes, churches, or other suitable places on the last Sunday in September as a public expression of the love, sorrow, and reverence of the people of the United States for the American Gold Star mothers. So we join them in that tribute to you. And also, you are carrying it on. I know it was interesting to me that you know, coming from the Vietnam and the situation that was going on at the time,
Right.
that you found solace in that and then started passing it forward.
Right.
So, you know, we were thrilled that you were able to come tonight and also keep doing that.
Thank you.
So with that, does anyone have any questions for Mary? Jan?
I have two questions, Mary. First, did Michael and his wife have any children?
No.
And second, is the Indian an Apache, because the helicopter is an Apache helicopter gunship?
Well, his division was called the Warrior Division, or the unit, whatever you call it, but he was a warrior. His insignia said warrior on it, so I guess that was a warrior, an Indian warrior on the helicopter. Okay.
Any other questions for Mary?
I have a little thing to add. When the man came to the door, actually he asked for a Joanne Kight, which was Michael's wife, because she was living with us. But she had gone to New York for the day with her girlfriend, and the young man, he asked for her. And for a minute I thought, well, maybe that was a friend of Joanne's and Michael's. But then I said, are you a friend of Michael's? And he said, no. And just looking at his face, I had an idea. But he wouldn't tell us. He said, I have to talk to Joanne. Now I was getting upset because, you know, I'm thinking, well, maybe he's wounded. I don't want to think the worst. So finally he saw that I was getting hysterical, and he asked if he could use my phone. They didn't have cell phones then. So he went, I guess he called somebody in authority and got permission to tell us. But, you know, that was an awful few minutes that, you know, here I am, the mother, and they couldn't tell me, you know. And I kept, you know, it just was a very upsetting moment on top of everything else.
Did you get?
Like I said, we go into hospitals. Like I go to the West Haven Hospital with the VFWs. We play bingo in the blonde ward. That sounds kind of crazy, but some of them are blind, they can't see, but they love to play bingo, so of course we play it for them, and they get just as excited. Did you see this? I don't know. They get just as excited when we tell them one more number, you B2, and then the B2 comes up and they get so excited they yell bingo. So, and then if I hear that a young man has passed away in the service, I try to go to that funeral. I've been to Jewish ones, I've been to just about every funeral religion there is. But, and then also when we had the motorcycle run, we did it purposely to raise money to contribute to different veterans, like the Vietnam Wall, the Wounded Warriors. We try and support different groups. So, you know, whenever we feel like we're needed or we could help, you know, it does mean.
Is there a state headquarters for the Gold Star Mothers?
Pardon?
Is there a state headquarters for the Gold Star Mothers here in Connecticut?
A state what?
Headquarters.
No, the headquarters is in Washington, D.C.
So there's no state one?
But we have our meetings 4 times a year. December and in June, when there's a convention, we have it at Rocky Hill. And then in March and September, we have it at a restaurant in Southington, Tony's. They have a room that we could go to, but there's no headquarters in Connecticut.
Okay, the answer is in your pamphlet. For information regarding the Gold Star Mothers statue, contact Wendy or Doc.
Well, it's all over with now.
Oh, no.
That was if you wanted to contribute. It's been a few years now. There's only, besides me, there's only 3 other Gold Star mothers from Vietnam that are left. There might be more, but I mean, that's the ones that I'm familiar with. The thing is, I've been the president of the Gold Star Mothers for over 10 years. I'm trying to get these young girls to participate a little bit more. And I think that maybe it's a good thing, but like I needed the Gold Star Mothers. They don't really need us anymore because the Vietnam boys coming home or the girls coming home, they've reached out to the ones that are losing their sons and daughters now. And there's different things going on. Like there's the Hall of the Trees. I'm not saying it right. The Trees of Honor in Meriden. They planted a tree for each one that got killed in the Desert Storm or Afghanistan. The ones that are recently. Then there's a hall in the Capitol with pictures of these young men too. And there's, like I said, a lot of help for them now so that they don't feel like they need the Gold Star Mothers anymore. And that upsets me because that's a beautiful organization that I don't want to see and fall by the way. I feel like the Vietnam boys that came back really are looking out for the families now. The one that commissioned the helicopter for Michael, he was a Vietnam boy that came back, and he used to talk to me a lot of times. He keeps saying, I don't know why I came back, and some didn't come back. And one day he came up to me and he said, I just found out that we could get a helicopter. I guess when they're out of commission, you could get it, but it's up to you to get it to your place where you want it to go. But they raised money and they got that helicopter, and it was a bunch of Vietnam boys that came in, helped put it together, put it up. So like I said, they don't want people to forget, and it's mostly, and I'm not saying anything about the World War II boys too, but I mean, they were welcomed home, where the Vietnam boys didn't want the boys coming home not to be welcomed like they weren't, Right. So like my husband was a World War II soldier. I married him while he was in the service, and he was under Patton's, and he fought in the Battle of the Bulge. But when he came home, there was parades. It was everybody welcomed him, which made a big difference. How they felt when they came home.
Was your husband alive when you got
Yes, yeah, he came back okay,
No,
and
I
had
mean,
6 children after.
Was he there when you got the doc on
Yes,
the
he
door?
was. Yes, I just lost him about 25 years ago. Is there any more questions?
I have one more. Has there ever been a video made of the Gold Star Mothers, which has been perhaps broadcast somewhere?
Yes, well, it hadn't been all the Gold Star Mothers. I had one on Channel 3. They did a video, and I had to give a talk. And in fact, one of the men was there the day that I went up in the helicopter, and he videoed part of that, and that was on Channel 3. And there's been stories in the paper and things like that.
And where is Michael buried?
In Calvary Cemetery in Waterbury,
Calvary.
Next to his dad.
And what is on his gravestone, his headstone? Is there a Purple Heart?
He did get a Purple Heart. He got other ones, but because it was a crash. I have to explain this. Nobody ever told us what happened to Michael. And about 10 years after he passed away, I hate to make this drag out, but somebody called me from Massachusetts and wanted to come and talk to me. They said he went to school with Michael, the aviation school or whatever you call it, and they were in Vietnam, the same group. And he did come to see me, and he hugged me and started crying, and I said, well, don't feel bad. We've gotten over it. We got used to it. He said, no, I have to tell you something. He said that they were going out to another rescue mission, and they were flying in a formation. And he said, I was just above Michael, and I thought the one behind me was very close, and I turned my head. He said he had this hand on the stick, and I don't know what the stick is. I think it controls the helicopter. He said, and I turned around, and I hand pushed the stick a little down, and his helicopter went into Michael's rotary blades. And so that it crashed. So Michael didn't get a Purple Heart because it wasn't war related. I mean, to me it was war related, but they
Combat related.
yes. So, but at least I found out that there was no fire. That because I often wondered. You see the movies of planes crashing and fire, and that's all I kept thinking about. But he told me it wasn't like that at all. So that was one good thing to find about. And he wanted to go to see Mike's grave, and he kept crying and telling Mike he was sorry. And I told him it was war and things happened, But his wife said that after that he was a lot better. That was on his mind, and it bothered him. Yeah. So he finally got to tell me and got it off his chest. So. Okay, thank you for listening, I appreciate it.
Well, Mary, what I'd like to present you is not only honoring Gold Star mothers, but also
Oh.
thank you for
Oh, that's beautiful.
presenting
Thank you.
tonight.